Well, g'day, Max here again. Welcome back to the shop. So this episode we'll continue on with our compound slide, the top slide. We have everything cleaned up, so it's just a matter of giving the base of the compound a quick lap in to make sure everything's flat and tickety-boo there. And that's just a straightforward reassembly. I mentioned before, at a later date we will disassemble that and complete the oil ways in it, the oil grooves. I did order some parts. Actually the oilers have just turned up in the mail, little ball bearing push type oilers, and I've got a couple of little ball nose end mills ordered to do the zigzag oil grooves. So when that all turns up, we'll pull it back off and complete that. And then we're going to remount the tail stock and just get a bit of an idea of where we're sitting height wise above centre. So, and we had a bit of mail come in all the way from Belgium. So that's Michael from Rustinox. So he has a pretty cool channel. Fair bit of there's a bit of shaper work as well. Remember, he was in the Emma Ritson's tool making competition 2019 and made that really cool looking oil container on you dip your brush in. So, no, we'll get him up on the board, and then we'll move on to our other project. Okay, there you go, mate. You're on the board with the others now. So that's actually, it's a biodegradable sticker, that one. I'm pretty sure he said it's biodegradable. So that's Michael from Rustinox. So yeah, as a good channel, have a bit of a laugh when you watch him. So well worth checking out. Okay, so our compound slide, we've just got a little bit of 14 micron lapping paste and a bit of CRC as a medium. So we're just going to give it a bit of a tickle up. Making sure we get a good even pressure down. So if you have any irregularities in the mating surfaces between the compound and the cross slide, that'll give you a lot of chatter. It's a cause for a lot of chatter. Bit of a warm one today here in Perth. It's about 35 degrees. So I've only just come back from being up at the block on the shed site. So we did some preliminary compaction testing with the penetrometer that we made, and things are looking like we're well above where we need to be with regards to compaction. So that's good. We'll get a rag and wipe this off. And we're getting a nice even ring around there, so I'm happy with that. So we'll continue assembling the compound. Okay, well, let's get this thing assembled up. First thing we usually start with, a bit of oil.
I didn't do any extra provision for extra lubrication on this top slide. There's a couple of things I would like to do to it later on down the track, but I'll have to order in some oilers, just to push in ball bearing type oilers, because I would like to see one on each side on this one. Once we do that, we'll put some oil grooves in this, but that can be done later on. So plenty of oil on the slide there. So we just invert the lower onto the upper. It's feeling good. Now our gib strip. As we said, we did cut the groove in the gib, but that'll come into play later on. But I need to get some oilers, and that's going to delay the project. So it's simple enough to sort it out later on. Okay, so we've got our adjusting screws in for the gib. We can find a screwdriver. There we are. One of the rare days you see me with the shorts on. I suppose it is coming up summertime here now, so it'll happen more and more. So we want that nice firm fit. It feels quite good there. A bit too much that. Oh, back her off a bit. That feels good, that. Nice and firm, no play. Okay, so the next step, we have to assemble the screw in. Well, actually we've got to put this together from memory. Now, the thrust bearings on the screw are lubricated by grease, as there's no provision for an oiler in the handle assembly. So just pack a bit of grease on them. Just put plenty on because you have to disassemble this to be able to grease it up. So from memory, we had a thrust bearing, the race goes on first, bearing, and the other race. Okay, then we had this collar goes on, a bit on the shaft as well. Okay, so our collar goes on. Now, the thrust bearing goes on the other side of the collar. Okay, then we have a keyway to go in. A very small key goes in there. Now, before we stick the handle on, we better get this screwed into position, because there's the two mounting cap screws. I think the handle, yes, it does. The handle covers up the two mounting cap screws, so a little bit of oil on the screw. And it's just a simple thing of screwing them in. Making sure we don't damage our indicator plate with the 0 points on it. So there's just two cap screws to go in there. Pretty straightforward operation. And always just try and so you get a bit of play. What we're going to do, we'll just centralise it a bit. Then I'm going to put the handle on and wind it all the way back so the nut gets closer up to this end. So if there is any misalignment, that's the closest place the nut is going to be to the mounting collar here. We bring them all the way back as far as it'll go. We slip the handle off again, being careful not to lose our keyway. Now the nut is right there, so we're right up close to the mounting point for the bearing collar. So now we can properly centralise this collar. If you don't do that, when you wind the cross slide all the way back like this, the thread will bind up and you'll get premature wear in the bronze nut. So as you see now, there's no play in that whatsoever, up and down. So is that a good nip? Now, our handle can go back on. So now what we have to do is we have to set the end play for the handle. So if we have too much play here, we will get a lot of end float backlash in the compound slide. And this compound, the nut in this one is not adjustable, so there's, once it wears, that's it, you have to replace it. So we screw our adjuster in. Find the right size pin punch. So the more I tighten that nut up, it takes all of the backlash there and float out. So just want a good nip, that's all it takes. So now we go ahead and tighten up the locking grub screw in the centre, and that will lock the position of that lock nut. So I'm going to find a small Allen key. Which is that one there. Just a bit of a nip's all it needs. That's our compound done, ready for assembly. So we'll set this back on the lathe, and we can move on to the next stage, which I think we're going to be looking at the tailstock. Okay, so to mount our compound slide, we have these, they're like a T-slot nut. There's two of these that go in this slot here, and that's what clamps it all down. So you might have noticed they get pretty gnarly in here because I do use a lot of flood coolant, and it's not a place you can get in very often and clean out. So they wiggle in this hole. One there. A bit of grease will hopefully help prevent them rusting as well. Place them 180 degrees apart. And I will stick a bit of extra grease in here, purely as a corrosion preventative. Same on the spigot as well, and I rub a bit in on the cast area underneath. Okay, so let's invert the whole assembly. And in with our socket head cap screws. Oh, we missed that one. I'm just in the wrong position under the light. I'm just... There he is. That's got him started. Okay. So just set this close to 0. Give him a nip down. I'm not a big one for having my compound set at an angle. Personally, there's no real need for it that I can see. Never have done. Not saying I ever will, but okay, we've got nice smooth action on that. So, next up, tailstock. Okay, our tailstock, there's nothing really wrong with this. Really the only reason I'm pulling this apart is I'm really inquisitive as to this one oiler here. That's all this thing's got. Now, in the past, I've sort of wondered a bit why we have two oil holes, one little one there and one there. Now, it doesn't seem to be much oil comes out of these, so I'd like to pull this apart and we'll see how if that oiler down there is linked to these two holes. So, first thing we've got to do is get rid of this clamping mechanism here. Now this shaft slides out that way, so it has to be a lock on it. Before we do that, we'll separate we'll see if we can't separate the two halves. Find the Allen key again. I'll bring them all over. That way I've got them here. So we're just slackening off our adjuster Allen keys, one on either side. And these are for the tailstock alignment. And then at the rear, there's two more, and they are the locking ones for the tailstock alignment. So you set your alignment with the two side ones, and then you lock it here on these two here. So then this should all prise apart. One thing we don't want to be doing is getting a bloody screwdriver and jamming it in the side here. So we're just levering off the shaft, levering up to separate it. Okay, well that's quite interesting that, because we have an oil port there, an oil port there, and nothing drilled through on this side. So these oil holes here do absolutely nothing. So we'll investigate that one further. There could be a case we might have to cross drill them, and when we get some oilers, we can put an oiler on each side. The other thing I will do to this is I want to drill and tap mounting holes in the front here so we can fit way wipers up to it. Yeah, that's a mystery solved. I've always wondered about those oil holes. Okay, so our shaft, to get that out, we have a small grub screw here. Or is it a roll pin? Quite small, I can't even see that. I hope it's not a roll pin because it's going in a blind hole. let me go and get a torch and I'll just see what's going on, because we've got this retainer in here for the shaft. Now these need to be greased, pulled apart and greased, and we've got to find out, is that a roll pin or a grub screw? So I'll go and get a torch, we'll get a bit of light on the situation and see what's going on. Okay, on closer inspection of the underside of this, on the mating surface where it splits, you see a patch there. You can see witness marks from an end mill. There's some more up in the corner there. And a couple in the corner there. This thing here has been finished off with a sanding disc. It's shocking. I can feel the irregularities with my finger when I run it along. That's absolute garbage crap, that. And the mating base isn't much better. So what I'm going to do is reassemble this and put it back on the lathe. Now I know this quill height does sit rather high in relation to the spindle. So I'll get a measurement of that, and what we may have to do is true these surfaces up, remachine these, whether we grind them or mill them. We'll have to work that out once we get a measurement, because I'm sure this is quite a few thou above centre height, this tailstock. So we'll get it reassembled, back on the lathe and get a measurement done. Okay, one thing I did notice with the base of this was the two locking screws which lock the base in position after you've done your side-to-side adjustment. On the grub screws are leaving, if you can pick it up, get the right angle there. There we are. See these indents? One there, the other one there. Now, that's caused by the end of these grub screws being, where are we? There. The cone pointed end on them. So, what I'm going to do is we'll flatten these off so it sits on a nice flat surface there. So I think sometimes when I set this up to do tapers, you're just trying to get that last, if it's only a little bit, you want that last bit of offset. I think these locking screws are influencing the way that this finally locks up. It does tend to influence it a bit. So we'll modify those screws. As far as our oil holes go that we mentioned, that go nowhere. Okay, I'm going to cross drill into the sides, and I've ordered some oilers that'll push in, the little ball type oilers that'll push into the sides. So that takes care of that. We reassemble, we get a measurement, and then we can reassess if we're going to do anything with these surfaces. So, assembly is just quite straightforward, just a couple of drops of oil. So only purely for corrosion prevention. We slip part A onto part B. Now that's, you probably hear that rattling. She's quite a liberal fit on there. It should be a bit tighter than that. So I think it was only the burrs. I did file the burrs off left behind from these locking screws. So, you know, it took a bit of effort to lift it. So pop all our screws back in position. Find the Allen key. Here we are, hopefully. No. Probably taken it somewhere else, have I? Here we are, here we are. So we just very lightly nip those and nip up our side adjusters. Now there is a scale on the end here for when you do your adjustment. Must be stuck on with some sort of rice glue or something, because one half has fallen off, so that's a complete waste of time. So I'll just feel it with my fingers to the edge here for now until we get it set up in the lathe. Okay, that goes on there, that goes on there. Now clamp nut. Oh, and the piss poor thin washer underneath, so that'll be replaced with a proper washer of quite substantial thickness. This nut of course gets its final adjustment once we're sitting on the lathe bed, and that will determine the position where the clamping lever comes up. So if you find your clamping lever's going way too far over or not far enough, if it's going too far over, you tighten this nut down, and if it's not coming up enough, you slacken it off. So swing you over onto the lathe. Okay, we've got our tailstock remounted, so we've just set up the coax in the spindle of the lathe just to get an indication of what we've got going on here. So if I set it to side, we get the side to side offset correct first. So we're on the 15th thou mark there. We come round to the opposite side and we're pretty close to the 15th thou mark there. So as far as side to side movement goes, we're there. So we'll come down underneath the quill, and we're high by 2 1/4 thou. We come to the top of the quill, and we're same again. We're high by 2 1/4 thou. So that tells me then where the centre of the tailstock spindle is only 2 1/4 thou above the centre of the lathe spindle. I thought it was a bit higher, so with only that in mind, I think the best thing we can possibly do for this tailstock is not much. What we'll do is we'll fit our oilers, and I've also got a new tube of bearing blue coming, so we'll blue the two halves and we'll get a print of that, and we'll just check what's going on with any high spots. I don't feel it's worth, if we start machining it, we're only talking 2 1/4 thou, where you do really want your tailstock spindle at least, you know, thou and a half up, I'd say. So we're not talking that much. Now the specification given in the manual for this lathe, now bear in mind these are pretty liberal specifications. Just this one here, and they talk of a rise of 0.025 millimeters, which is 1/1000th of an inch. So, and we've got 2 1/4 thou. So, I mean, when you read through these specifications there, I think they're pretty generic and out there. I don't think they can be relied on too much. And that's the manual for the lathe. So, we'll progress further with the tailstock, as we said, once the oilers come, once we get our bearing blue, and we'll just leave it at that for now.